Welcome to our first all-new episode of 2021. We've got a fresh batch of match highlights, game reviews, and more. Hello, I'm Candace, and thank you for joining us for another jam-packed edition of the State Champs Esports Show, which is brought to you by Lawrence Tech and Hungry Howie's Pizza. Before we get started, I want you to download our State Champs Network mobile app. It's available for iPhone and Android. There's also a streaming version of our app that's available for Roku and Amazon devices. This way, you'll be able to watch our show from virtually anywhere. To kick off the show, let's welcome the teams that have signed up for our first ever Overwatch tournament. Melvindale High School leads the charge with 3 teams, while Detroit Catholic Central will have 2 teams competing. Joining these schools are Loy Norix, Macomb Dakota, and Baraga. The regular season starts the week of January 18th, and we'll check back in next week with the final list of teams. Over the holiday break, we held a solo Rocket League tournament with some of Michigan's best high school players. Let's take a look at some of the highlights.
State Champs Esports held a 1v1 Rocket League tournament on their Twitch page, where 28 individuals around the Great Lakes region competed for scholarships, prizes, and the chance to be crowned #1. The first matches of day 1 saw the winners move on to the tournament bracket and slotting in the 2 closest losers. Round 1 was a best of 3, and a majority of the game winners easily moving on to the quarterfinals. And those quarterfinals also a best of 3. Once again, 75% of the winners moving on after an easy fought battle. From here on out, the playtime extended, going to a best of 5. Raka from Loy Norix and Markham from Macomb Dakota in the semis here, and it was Markham moving on to the finals. The other semis saw Bomb from Divine Child taking on Fitfish, also from Macomb Dakota. It was the Season 1 Grand Champion Bomb from DC moving on to the finals. Now, before we check out the finals, the third place game saw Raka and Fitfish battle for bronze, and it was Fitfish with the clean 3-game sweep. And finally, let's check out who came out on top. After splitting the first 2 games, Bomb from DC pulled away and was crowned champion of the 2020 State Champs Esports 1v1 Rocket League tournament.
Thank you, Kevin. We'll have more 1v1 Rocket League highlights later in the show. Now, let's take a look at some of this week's new game releases. Up first is Five Nights at Freddy's Core Collection, which includes the first 5 games in the series and is available on PS4, Xbox One, and the Switch. Next is Scott Pilgrim vs. the World Complete Edition. This retro-inspired game was originally released in 2010 as a tie-in to the graphic novel-turned-movie. The Complete Edition includes both the original game and the 2 add-on packs. And finally, Iris Fall, the award-winning puzzle adventure game from 2018, will finally be available for the Switch. And now, to help us get ready for the start of our Overwatch tournament, we've got highlights from a very special match between the fall champions from the Michigan High School Esports Federation and Esports Ohio.
I'm Ethan Avery reporting in for the Overwatch Battle of the Border between Ohio and Michigan. Let's get right into the action with Map 1, where a big earth shatter from Candle opens up an opportunity for Victory Blazes High Noon, and Shaker Heights would take Lijiang. But on Rialto, Melvindale would respond with a massive Riptire that would help them even up the series 1-1. And on Map 3, Melvindale, mere meters from finishing the map, Candle and Victory Blaze once again would team up to stop their push, giving Shaker Heights the lead in the series. We'd get overtime in Hanamura as Melvindale looked to take the first point, but Mayhem Rules had other plans, not 1, not 2, not 3 or 4, but 5 back-to-back elims on the Baptiste to bring Shaker Heights to match point. Final map, Victory Blaze would continue the stellar performance in the match and pick up 3 here, giving Shaker Heights the win 4 maps to 1.
Assassin's Creed Valhalla came out November 10th, the other big release of late 2020. Valhalla is the Viking fantasy that so many gamers have been waiting for. I played this game pretty much up until Cyberpunk came out, and even after it came out. The game launched with a considerably more solid foundation than Cyberpunk, coming in with a few graphical bugs, sure, but anything game-breaking was pretty much patched out. But don't let that fool you. The game looks and sounds beautiful. You play as Eivor. As you and your family leave the tumultuous lands of Norway, you decide to head to England to stake out land and start your own kingdom, with the freedom to do so in whatever way pleases you. England is grand and ripe for the taking, and you and your crew find a nice hamlet for yourselves. From there you make alliances and take on more regions. You can actually upgrade the village into a bustling town and even eventually into a city, as well as go hunting, bring back supplies for rewards and just to help the town, not to mention building supplies from, of course, raiding the local villages. While the last 2 games in the franchise, Origins and Odyssey, were definitely fun, they felt like quite a big departure from the original series, moving away from one-hit counters and assassinations and parkour to a more Dark Souls style combat and more focus on exploration than the bustling cities and the flashy verticality that fans adored. Valhalla compromises a lot of these missing elements from the old game beautifully. Beautiful sprawling environments between swamps, pastures, mountains, and more. We got big cities back, and with them, big buildings to climb. Verticality is back, and it actually feels like parkour in this game. The way you ascend, descend, and vault over things. However, it's not as complete as Assassin's Creed Unity, but hey, I don't think the Vikings were focused on doing fancy tricks while climbing. A more refined combat system from Odyssey, with weightier hits, full customization of fighting style. You can go from classic 2 hand axes, to hand axe and shield, and a dagger, to a large battle axe, even 2 giant axes or even 2 giant swords. It gets pretty nutty because it even changes the way you fight and dodge. Moving away from getting random weapons and armor, they've adopted getting specific gear throughout the map that you hold on to and can decide to upgrade and use at your leisure, without the annoyance of having to micromanage all that gear. You now get a huge array of perks and upgrades split into Bear for War, Raven for Stealth, and Wolf for Hunting and Archery. Abilities are now things you find in tomes around the map and earn from quests and rewards. You'll recognize a few of them from the last games, but my personal favorite is Rush and Bash, because there's nothing more satisfying than slamming someone to a wall or throwing them off the edge of a map. Finally, while the Assassin's storyline does take a bit of a backseat here, they found a really awesome way of implementing it with these targets throughout the map, and you can use clues and interrogations to find them. Overall, the game gives me a real feeling of wanderlust and has so much content and things to explore that it'll keep you coming back. The story is compelling and really feels like you affect the historical characters that are involved. This game gets a huge thumbs up from me. I highly suggest it, so grab your hand axes, spears, and shields and get cracking.
Now to wrap up the show, Kevin is back with a recap from our solo Rocket League consolation round.
For those who participated in the State Champs Esports 1v1 Rocket League tournament and did not make it to the quarterfinals, there was a consolation tournament held the following week, and I can tell you that there was just as much excitement in this one. Dom from Dearborn, Divine Child, was the favorite to make it to the final round, but was upset in the semis by Tony the Tiger 2 from Livonia Stevenson. And Tony's opponent in the finals was Dom's teammate, Dang It Carl. Now, before we see who came out on top, I picked up the controller to see if I could hang in there with these talented high school players. And right from the start, I could not contain these amazing students. Now to the final bout, DC's Dang It Carl and Livonia Stevenson's Tony TK2. After splitting the first 2 games, Tony TK2 came out of nowhere to take first place in the 1v1 consolation tournament, winning the best of 5 series. Congrats to Livonia Stevenson and Tony the Tiger 2.
Thanks, Kevin, and thanks to all of you for watching. Before we go, make sure to head over to ltuathletics.com to recruit yourself if you're interested in competing on a collegiate varsity esports team. We'll see you next time.